The mop hit Garrett Cole's chest before he saw it coming. The metal handle struck him square in the sternum with a hollow thud that echoed across the hangar floor. 50 workers froze mid-motion. Tools clattered to concrete. Conversations died in throats. Vivian Sterling stood 3 feet away. Her arm was still extended from the throw. Her Armani suit cut sharp lines under the industrial lights, charcoal gray fabric that probably cost more than Garrett earned in 3 months. Her blonde hair was pulled back with severe precision, not a single strand out of place. She was 34 years old, CEO of Titan Aerospace, daughter of the late Richard Sterling, who had built this empire from nothing and died of a massive heart attack in this very building 6 months ago. 6 months of Vivian trying to prove she deserved what her father had built. 6 months of board members circling like sharks who smelled blood in the water. The workers called her the Ice Queen when they thought management wasn't listening. They weren't wrong. Garrett didn't move, didn't speak. He just stood there in his maintenance uniform, blue fabric worn soft at the elbows, his name stitched above the pocket in thread that had faded from navy to gray over 2 years of washing. 36 years old. Shoulders that still carried the memory of better days. Hands that had once held scalpels with surgical precision, that had gripped flight sticks at 30,000 feet, threading through sandstorms that sent better pilots running for ground. Now those hands gripped a bucket of industrial cleaner. Behind him, in the corner near a tool cart, his daughter Lily sat clutching her notebook against her chest. 9 years old, hair that was her mother's legacy, brown curls catching the light. Her hazel eyes streamed with tears as she watched her father being destroyed in front of 50 strangers. The notebook was filled with airplane drawings, detailed sketches of jet engines labeled in her careful printing. Wings and fuselages and landing gear, rendered with remarkable accuracy for a child her age. She'd been drawing quietly for 2 hours while Garrett cleaned, staying out of the way, being good, being invisible, the way they'd both learned to be. Vivian's voice sliced through the silence. "You think you belong here?" Garrett bent down slowly, picked up the mop. The handle was still warm from where it had struck him. She stepped closer. The scent of expensive perfume, something French, something that cost more than his monthly rent, mixed with the smell of machine oil and aviation fuel that permeated everything in Titan Aerospace's primary facility. "You know what your problem is?" Her voice pitched louder now, meant for the audience. "You think because you show up every day, because you push that mop around, because you bring your kid to work like this is some kind of daycare, you think that makes you valuable?" Garrett's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. "This man," Vivian pivoted to address the hangar, gesturing at Garrett like he was evidence in a trial. "This janitor let his daughter wander into a restricted testing zone. She was touching the Apex prototype, military equipment, $400 million of American aerospace engineering." From the corner, Lily's sob carried across the concrete. The incident report would later state that Lily Cole had breached security protocols, that immediate disciplinary action was required. The report wouldn't mention that the restricted zone door had been propped open by engineers too lazy to badge in and out. That a 9-year-old curious about machines had simply walked through an open door to get a closer look at the planes she loved to draw. Preston Shaw emerged from the cluster of executives near the prototype, 42 years old. MIT ring on his finger, suit that probably cost $5,000. He was Titan's CFO, and his smile was the kind surgeons use when explaining terminal diagnoses. "Perhaps we should take this somewhere private, Vivian." She didn't take her eyes off Garrett. "I want him to hear this. I want everyone to hear this." 50 pairs of eyes watched. 50 people held their breath. Their relief that it wasn't them standing here was almost palpable. Garrett thought about his hands, the ones that used to hold surgical instruments steady while helicopters shook from enemy fire. The ones that couldn't hold his wife's hand when she died because nerve damage from shrapnel had stolen his ability to feel texture. He thought about Lily, about the half sandwich she'd saved from lunch yesterday because she knew money was tight, about shoes he'd been meaning to replace for 3 months, soles worn through to cardboard. Garrett set the mop against a tool cart. "You done?" The words came out quiet, too quiet. "Excuse me?" "I asked if you were done, because when you're finished telling me everything I'm not, I'd like to tell you something about that jet." He pointed to the Apex prototype behind the glass partition. $400 million of aerospace engineering. Sleek and lethal. Painted in radar-absorbing gray that cost more per gallon than most people earned in a week. "What about it?" "It's going to explode." The hangar went silent. Not the silence of before. This was different. This was the silence of reality taking a sharp left turn into territory nobody had mapped. Preston Shaw stopped smiling. Vivian stared at Garrett like he'd lost his mind. "What did you just say?" "The secondary exhaust valve is reversed." The words came out flat, factual. "Your engineers installed it backwards. It happens when teams rush, when leadership pushes deadlines instead of safety." He met her eyes. No malice, no satisfaction, just tired recognition. On the ground, it reads as a minor pressure deviation, 2% above tolerance. Nothing your automated systems would flag. But at 20,000 feet, that reverse valve creates a feedback loop in the combustion chamber. Between minute 3 and minute 5 of your Pentagon demonstration, he spread his hands. Boom. Vivian's face went pale. "You're a janitor. Check the valve. Security, get this man out of my facility." 2 guards moved forward, but Hollis Brennan stepped out of the crowd before they could reach Garrett. 63 years old, gray beard, eyes that had seen things in Vietnam that still woke him up screaming 4 decades later. The most senior engineer at Titan. "Wait." The guard stopped. Hollis's fingers moved across his tablet. His face went bloodless. "Miss Sterling." His voice shook. First time in 30 years anyone had heard Hollis Brennan's voice shake. "The secondary exhaust valve. He's right. It's reversed. If we'd run that demonstration..." He couldn't finish. Garrett pulled his arms free from the frozen security guards, straightened his uniform. "Come on, sweetheart." He walked to Lily, took her hand. "Time to go home." They walked through the crowd that parted like water around stones. 50 workers who couldn't meet his eyes. Some looked ashamed. Most looked confused. The kind of confused that came from realizing the world didn't work the way they'd been promised. The bus stop was 2 blocks from Titan's facility. Garrett and Lily sat on a metal bench baked hot by the October Los Angeles sun. Lily hadn't said a word since they left. "Daddy?" "Yeah, sweetheart." "Why did that lady hate you so much?" Garrett watched traffic pass, tried to find words that wouldn't break his daughter's heart. "She doesn't hate me, sweetheart. She's scared." "Scared of what?" "Of falling, of being weak, of looking in the mirror and seeing someone who isn't good enough." He looked at his daughter. When people are that scared, sometimes they hurt others to feel strong. Lily processed this with eyes too wise for 9 years. "That's sad, Daddy. She looks really lonely, like she needs a friend but forgot how to ask." Garrett's chest ached. His 9-year-old had seen what 50 adults missed. Not a villain, just a woman drowning. Tuesday, 4:47 in the morning. The old hangar on Titan's back lot hadn't been used in years. Rusted metal, cracked concrete, aircraft parts scattered like bones in a graveyard. Hollis Brennan sat on an overturned crate, thermos of coffee in his hands. "You're early." Garrett stepped over a rusted engine housing. "So are you." Hollis pulled out his phone, showed Garrett a photograph from a 2012 military gala. Third from the left, a man in dress uniform, medals across his chest, eyes already dead despite the smile. "Captain Garrett Cole, 82nd Medical Battalion, Flight surgeon and combat pilot, Silver Star for valor. 23 confirmed saves under enemy fire in Kandahar. Garrett's jaw tightened. That man died in Kandahar. The hell he did. I saw your face yesterday when Vivian threw that mop. Something woke up. The memory surfaced unbidden. Kandahar, 2009. A suicide vest detonating in the hospital waiting area while Garrett was stitching up a sergeant. The explosion collapsing half the building. Garrett throwing himself over 3 wounded soldiers, shrapnel tearing through his arms, performing surgery while his own blood pooled on the floor. The military gave him a Silver Star. The doctors gave him permanent nerve damage. Peripheral neuropathy that ended both careers in 60 seconds. His wife Marin died 3 months later. Complications from childbirth. Internal bleeding the doctors caught too late because she'd been too stubborn. Told them the pain was normal even when it wasn't. Garrett was still in physical therapy when she died. Learning how to hold a cup again. His damaged nerves registering only pressure and heat, never texture. He couldn't feel the warmth of her skin when she slipped away. I keep her voicemail on my phone, Garrett said quietly. $40 a month to keep the line active. Come home safe. I love you. She didn't know I was already broken. Hollis was quiet for a long moment. You're not broken, son. You're just waiting to remember who you are. Wednesday, 2 in the morning. Garrett's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Captain Cole, this is Agent Delacroix, FBI White Collar Crime Division. He sat up in bed. Lily was asleep in the next room. We've been investigating Preston Shaw for 6 months. Securities fraud, insider trading, corporate sabotage. Why are you calling me? Because Preston Shaw just shorted 2 million shares of Titan stock. If Thursday's demonstration fails, the stock price crashes. Shaw makes $50 million. The pieces clicked. The valve wasn't an accident. No, it was deliberate sabotage. We have evidence Shaw accessed Titan's flight control systems Monday night. Agent Delacroix paused. We also have evidence linking him to 3 deaths. Whistleblowers who threatened to expose him, made to look like accidents. What do you need from me? Eyes inside, someone who can identify sabotage and testify in federal court. Your expertise is exactly what we need. I'm not a captain anymore. I'm a janitor with a daughter who needs her father. If Shaw succeeds Thursday, 3,000 people lose their jobs, including you. Her voice softened. And a 9-year-old girl learns that sometimes monsters win. Garrett stared at the ceiling. I'll be at the demonstration. If I see something wrong, I'll act. But my daughter comes first. Look for a woman in a red jacket. Code word is Nevada. Wednesday, 6 in the morning, Vivian's office. She'd spent the night pulling strings, calling every Pentagon contact her father had left her. She'd found Garrett's classified file, found the photograph her father kept in his desk drawer for 15 years. On the back, in Richard Sterling's handwriting, he saved my life, wanted nothing in return. The best of us. Garrett stood by the wall, refused to sit. Nevada, 2010. Vivian's voice trembled. A sandstorm that killed 6 other pilots. My father's private jet went down. He radioed that he had a 6-year-old daughter waiting at home. Said, tell her daddy tried to come home. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. Someone flew into that storm, found the crash site by following smoke, pulled him from burning wreckage 30 seconds before the fuel tanks exploded. She stood, walked around the desk. Was that you? Garrett could deny it, maintain the fiction one more day, but lies required energy he didn't have. He said he had a daughter. I thought about Marin, pregnant with Lily, about all the fathers who deserve to come home. Why didn't you take anything? He wanted to give you money, recognition, everything. I just wanted to go home to my wife, wanted a life that felt normal. His throat tightened. I didn't know normal would only last 3 more months. Vivian moved forward, hugged him, awkward, uncertain. Two broken people recognizing each other's fractures. The door burst open. Preston Shaw stood in the threshold, smartphone raised, camera capturing everything. Well, isn't this cozy? The boardroom. Wednesday afternoon. 12 board members sat around the conference table. Gray hair, expensive watches. Preston presented his case. Photographs of Vivian hugging the janitor. Questions about her judgment. Demands for her removal. Garrett walked in uninvited. He rolled up his sleeve. The evidence of Kandahar carved into his flesh. Raised scar tissue from wrist to elbow. Beside it, the tattoo of the 82nd Medical Battalion. Wings above a caduceus. Below, primum non nocere. First, do no harm. This is the 82nd Medical Battalion, the unit that saved 23 lives in Kandahar while my hands were bleeding out. He met each board member's eyes. You want to talk about judgment? Let's talk about stock trades, about accessing flight control systems at 2 in the morning, about 3 whistleblowers who died in convenient accidents. He pulled out his phone, showed them the text from Agent Delacroix. FBI agent Delacroix has been investigating Preston Shaw for 6 months. Securities fraud, insider trading, 3 counts of murder. Agent Delacroix walked into the conference room, red jacket, FBI credentials held high. Preston Shaw, you're under arrest. Preston ran. Garrett pursued. Preston reached his Mercedes, floored the accelerator in reverse. Garrett grabbed the door, was dragged across asphalt before losing his grip. FBI vehicles blocked the exit. Preston was boxed in. Handcuffs clicked. Garrett sat on the ambulance bumper, hands wrapped in fresh gauze layered over old scars. Wednesday night. Garrett sat in his apartment, staring at the wall. Tomorrow was the demonstration. Preston was in custody, but something gnawed at him. Men like Preston Shaw didn't bet $50 million on a single point of failure. He called Hollis at 11. I've been thinking the same thing, the old engineer said. Meet me at the facility. They spent the night checking every system, every valve, every wire, found nothing. At 4 in the morning, Hollis spoke. Maybe we got lucky. Maybe the valve was his only play. Garrett wanted to believe that. But 15 years of combat had taught him that luck was just another word for disaster waiting to happen. Thursday morning. 300 VIP guests filled the viewing stands. Pentagon generals, senators, defense contractors. Garrett sat in the front row. Guest of honor, Lily was supposed to be home with Mrs. Patterson, their elderly neighbor who watched her when Garrett worked late. But Mrs. Kreuger Patterson had called that morning, voice weak with flu. There was no one else. Garrett had arranged for Lily to stay in the employee break room, with strict instructions not to leave. A security guard named Martinez, a father of 3, had promised to check on her every 15 minutes. What Garrett didn't know was that Martinez had been pulled to handle a VIP parking dispute, that Lily, hearing the roar of jet engines, had slipped out to find her father, that when she'd told the gate guard her daddy was Garrett Cole, the VIP guest of honor, he'd waved her through with a smile. She'd wanted to see her father be a hero. The Apex prototype was wheeled onto the test platform, engines powered up with a roar that vibrated through concrete and bone. 90 seconds, everything perfect. Then alarms screamed, red lights cascading across monitors. Pressure spike in the secondary fuel line. Not the valve. Something else. Preston's backup plan. Programmed to trigger at 90 seconds. Garrett vaulted the safety barrier. Hollis followed with a cutting torch. The manual release valve is welded shut, Garrett shouted. Preston's insurance policy. They worked in synchronized chaos. Garrett attacking the welded valve. Hollis cutting through metal that should never have been sealed. The valve broke free. The auxiliary pump shuddered, coughed, died. 3 seconds of victory. Then the damaged fuel line ruptured. Fuel sprayed across hot metal, ignited instantly. Fire bloomed across the test platform. Garrett heard the scream before he processed what it meant. "Daddy!" Lily. She stood on the far side of the flames, 20 feet away, 9 years old, notebook clutched against her chest, eyes wide with terror. She'd wanted to see her father be a hero. Now she was trapped. Garrett didn't calculate, didn't assess risk, didn't think about nerve damage or being the only parent Lily had left. He ran into the fire. Heat instant and absolute, skin blistering, uniform melting, every nerve that still worked screaming abort. He didn't stop. His damaged nerves registered only pressure and heat, but heat was enough. He could feel the flames trying to consume him, could force his hands to grip despite the damage, could run despite the pain, could reach his daughter. He scooped Lily into his arms, tucked her face into his shoulder, wrapped his body around hers like a shield. Vivian's voice cut through the chaos. "Garrett, this way! Follow my voice!" He ran toward the sound. Blind faith. The same way he'd flown through sandstorms 15 years ago. He burst through the flames, collapsed on concrete, fire suppression systems activated, foam raining from ceiling sprinklers. Paramedics swarmed. Garrett refused to release Lily until he was certain she was breathing. Unhurt. Safe. "Daddy, don't leave me." "I'm right here, baby. I'm not going anywhere." Then consciousness claimed him. 8 hours later, hospital room, white walls, machines beeping. Garrett woke to find Lily asleep in the chair beside his bed, her small hand gripping his bandaged one. Vivian stood by the window, designer suit ruined, hair loose from its perfect arrangement. She looked more human than he'd ever seen her. 27 people survived because you warned them to evacuate early. The prototype is destroyed. But we have our lives. She turned from the window. The board met an hour ago. They voted to rebuild. They also created a new position, Director of Safety and Training, 6-figure salary, full authority. She pulled an envelope from her pocket. And this, a trust fund in Lily's name, $100,000, scholarship to any aerospace program in the country. Why? Because you gave me 15 years with my father. Because you saved my company twice. Her voice cracked. Because Lily is right. You are a hero, and heroes shouldn't have to mop floors. Lily stirred, opened her eyes, saw Garrett awake. "Daddy." She climbed onto the bed, careful of his injuries but desperate for contact. "You saved me. You ran into fire for me." "That's my job, sweetheart." "No." She shook her head. "Your job is mopping floors. You saved me because you're my daddy. Because you're a hero." She pulled something from her pocket, a drawing, singed at the edges but intact. Garrett and Lily holding hands, surrounded by flames but smiling. Above them, a woman with wings watched over them. "That's Mommy," Lily explained. "She helped you find me in the smoke. I know because I felt her." Garrett couldn't speak. Tears streamed down his face, the first he had allowed himself since Marin's funeral. 3 months later, the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Sterling Cold Training Center, 6,000 square feet of classrooms, flight simulators, and workshop space, a place where veterans could transition to aerospace careers, where underprivileged kids could learn to fly. 32 students in the first class, including a 25-year-old Afghanistan veteran with both legs lost below the knee. Lily sat in the front row, holding a sign she'd made in careful letters. "My daddy builds dreams." Garrett stepped to the microphone. "When I started this journey, I believed my best days were behind me. I was wrong. My best days were just ahead. I just hadn't found them yet." He found Lily in the crowd. She was smiling. "I've flown jets and saved lives and received medals I rarely wear. But the bravest thing I ever did wasn't in a cockpit or operating room. The bravest thing was picking up that mop every day for my daughter. Learning that being enough isn't about what you accomplish. It's about showing up, again and again, even when showing up is terrifying. That night, Garrett sat in the dark living room. Lily was asleep, notebook under her pillow, now filled with drawings of the training center, of students learning to fly, of her father standing tall. He pulled up Marin's voicemail one last time. "Hi, you've reached Marin Cole. I can't come to the phone right now. And if this is Garrett, I love you. Come home safe." He listened, smiled, and deleted it. Not because he'd stopped loving her, but because holding on to ghosts meant never moving forward. Marin would have wanted him to move forward. His phone buzzed. "Vivian, Pentagon approved funding for the new prototype. They want you to oversee safety. Dinner tomorrow to discuss? Lily's invited." Garrett typed back, "We'll be there." Outside, Los Angeles hummed its endless song. Somewhere out there, another single father was working a double shift. Another widow was learning to sleep alone. Another child was drawing dreams in a notebook, waiting for someone to believe in them. Garrett Cole had spent 5 years being invisible. Not anymore. And somewhere, in whatever place held the souls of those we've lost, Marin Cole smiled. Her husband had finally come home safe.